This is the Neve MBT, and I want to be very clear from the start. I don't use this as an EQ, and I've never used the color comp section once on an actual master. But there is one section of this unit that makes it a non-negotiable in my mastering chain, and that's exactly what I'm going to show to you today. For those of you who don't know me, I am Bram Fidder, a mastering engineer here at This Mixes Sick. I work at the highest end of dance music mastering, handling hundreds of records a year for some of the world's biggest DJs and most important dance labels. My focus during mastering is club translation, punch, separation, overall loudness and reliability across every system that matters. This is not going to be a spec sheet review. This is how I actually use the unit in a real mastering environment. The MBT sits fairly late in my analog chain. It comes directly after my stereo bus compression, which is handled by the West Audio NG bus comp. Any problem solving happens in the box with plugins. By the time audio hits my analog gear, everything needs to be stable, balanced and intentional, especially as it enters the MBT after parallel compression. At this stage, I'm simply not correcting issues. I'm enhancing feel, density, tonality and emotional impact. Let's start with the EQ. I rarely use it, and that's a very deliberate choice. For shelving moves, I simply don't need it. Those decisions are handled earlier in the chain with tools that give extremely precise and repeatable control. Occasionally, I push a very specific range to add a bit more low mid power or a touch of expansive sparkle. And for that it can sound great. But the bigger reason I don't rely on the EQ section here is recall. I handle a high volume of masters and recalling this simply isn't efficient. You can of course make photos or count the ticks on the step knobs. Personally, I use a Max for Live notepad device to write this information down for faster and more precise recalls, but it takes time. Beyond that, I don't find the EQ particularly special sonically. I'd much rather use other EQs or even a plugin. At this stage in the chain, everything needs to have a very clear reason to be in the signal path. The EQ simply isn't important here. The high pass filter, however, I do really like. What makes it especially useful is that it goes all the way down to 15 Hz, which is rare. At that point, you're not changing the perceived low end. You're tightening it. You're removing unnecessary sub-information that doesn't translate, while keeping the weight and punch intact. The result is a much more controlled low end and, just as importantly, some valuable headroom back. Nothing dramatic, just very deliberate control. The color comp section is something I've personally never used. It's simply not why this unit sits in my chain. For context, the color comp is a character-focused compressor. It's designed to add density, movement and harmonic color, and it's meant to be heard rather than stay transparent. The width control, however, is generally very good sounding. A couple of ticks can open up the stereo image in a very musical way without pulling focus or destabilizing the center, especially because you can filter the edit with signal. Used with restraint, it adds space and clarity while keeping the master solid. Anything beyond a couple of ticks typically is too much for mastering. Now we've arrived at the most important part, the Super Silk. For me, this unit is all about the Super Silk section. It isn't a static effect, it's a sophisticated interaction between the custom Neve transformers and the Silk red-blue circuits controlled by the harmonics knob. What makes it special is how you can target specific frequency bands for saturation. Silk red focuses on the mid-highs and highs. It adds a shimmering presence and silky air that pulls vocals and lead synths forward without becoming harsh. Silk blue on the other hand targets the low mids and lows. It adds weight, grit and a thick, vintage authority to the bottom end, making the kick and bass feel massive. The harmonics knob is the throttle for this behavior. At min, the saturation is transparent and subtle, perfect for a clean master that just needs a hint of expensive transformer weight. As you push towards max, the harmonic structure becomes denser and more saturated. In dance music, finding that sweet spot between the red-blue modes and the harmonics level allows you to shape the record at its foundation, adding attitude while keeping the groove intact and the center image rock solid. The Zener Drive is where the MBT transitions from tone shaping to raw power. Technically, this is a Zener diode clipping circuit and its purpose is specific: controlled peak shaving. In the modern mastering chain, especially for dance music, your transients often eat up a lot of headroom. And instead of relying on a digital limiter to do all the heavy lifting, which can sound small or have this pumping effect, the Zener Drive shaves those peaks off in the analog domain by introducing soft clipping via the Zener diodes. You're effectively rounding off the sharpest transients. This creates more headroom, allowing you to push the final gain of the record much higher before hitting the mastering converter. The result is a master that feels significantly louder, punchier and more aggressive, but without the brittle distortion of digital clipping. It's the secret to getting that loudness, war, competitive edge, while maintaining a sound that feels expansive and controlled on a club system. At this point, it makes the most sense to listen. I'm going to play a few different examples so you can hear how the MBT behaves. Some are quite subtle, others are pushed much harder. Just to give you a clear picture of the range and character of this unit, let's have a listen right now. That's really amazing. I mean, this band, it sounds so expensive. If you boost these type of frequencies with plugins, it starts to sound harsh very quickly, but here, none of that. Also note how the width high pass filter doesn't get applied on the overall signal, it only gets applied to the width that you're adding. Very SSL Fusion like. Here what you really hear is the beauty of that top end. It's really amazing. However, again, at this point in my chain, it's not my personal pick, but I want to be clear. It's a very cute EQ. It sounds really, really pristine, really clear. And yeah, you can absolutely 100% use this unit on your master and use the EQ as your only like shelving EQ. It's really good. Also, listen to the silk on the last track. It really made it sound from dull and dark to like opened up, sparkling and exciting. And that's really the magic of this unit. It's really powerful at transforming that mix into sounding analog and expensive. Okay, let's end with a sort of safe setting and a subtle way of really like adding some sparkle and analog magic to that master without really making the unit do too much. In that case, it would sound like this. You could be my true love. This is really usable. Like, this is exactly what you want during mastering. You don't want to make the mix sound completely different. You want to enhance it where it needs to be enhanced, and that's what a setting like this does. Let's do this drop once more, and yeah, let me just intensify the setting for you. You could be my true love. Wow, what a great sounding unit. I absolutely love it. To sum it up properly, any corrective work in my process happens digitally, before the analog chain. By the time audio hits a unit like this, the record already works. In that context, the MBT is about enhancement, adding character, density, and the attitude at the final stage. The EQ is musical, but precision and recall matter more in a high volume mastering workflow. The high pass filter is genuinely excellent, especially at 15 Hz, where it tightens the low end and gives headroom back without changing the feel. The width control, very well judged. Used carefully, it adds space without destabilizing the center. That is a critical thing for dance music. But the real value of this unit lives in Super Silk and Zener Drive. That combination delivers saturation and density that stay controlled, punchy and musical, even when the record is pushed very hard. At this level, that's what matters. How a unit behaves when the expectations are at the highest level and it just needs to sound spot on. And that's why this unit earns its place in my chain. If you've enjoyed watching this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more mastering content like this. And let me know in the comments what you think of the MBT, or how you are using it in your own chain. Or are you using similar processing methods with plugins? I'd love to know. Catch you all in the next video. Bye bye.